For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Con Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now, a groundbreaking story on the offensive line. Taking a look at why they feel like it could be okay, but some of the challenges that remain and a lot of the unknowns that still exist, how Jaden Daniels can help compared to what we saw last year with the play calling, et cetera. Anyways, you want to know about the joint practice. I got my pal, Nicki Jhabvala here from the Washington Post. I'm not down in Miami, but I took the chance to then go up to Boston to watch my son in a performance. I get two shows, Nicki. I get two shows with them. So that's good.
Awesome.
But Nicki is now the John Con Report correspondent. So Nicki, I talked to people about how the practice went. So I've got a little bit of a feel here, but tell me just in general, some impressions that you had coming off of like last week and just what you thought today.
Yeah, much stronger showing all around by the Commanders. They're, on offense, they had 5 touchdowns in a row in red zone period. So they looked strong. It helped that Jaden had better protection up front. Andrew Wiley was back in there doing some team drills like he did earlier in the week. So that helped. That was good to see. Then on offense, I felt like the group as a whole just worked better, more cohesively. The line, they got a ton of pressure up front. The back end sealed it quite a bit. I thought Forbes had a better day, had a deflection on one. Mike Sainer still another strong showing. That kid just looks really, really good as sort of their do-it-all defensive back. Beat Tyreek Hill on one-on-ones on one play. So yeah, Jaden Daniels threw 2 picks, neither of which were his fault. One was a pass that went through the hands of Cole Turner and was picked off by Marcus May. The other was on the very last play of practice. Terry slipped at the top of his route. They went inside on the turf field for the final team period. Terry just kind of slipped at the top of his route, and Kendall Fuller, of all people, picked it off, and that was the close of practice. Now, on one of the first team reps of practice, Terry caught a touchdown against Kendall, so it was sort of tit for tat for those two. It was kind of cool watching them working. I was like, oh man, it's like practice of the last 3 years.
Yeah,
right here.
Yeah, for sure. And I always like Kendall. Did Terry have anything to say to him after the touchdown?
I'm sure they exchanged words. I'm sure they were all pleasantries, house of family. Yeah. Yes, yeah. But no, after Kendall's pick, he, gave a little celebration that was sort of an inside joke among Commanders teammates. So it was all in good fun. I think those players still have a lot of respect for each other, and hasn't been that long since they saw each other. So.
Right, and Kendall's a true pro, so guys respect the heck out of him.
Yeah.
Let's go to the red zone with Jaden Daniels then. So. Mm-hmm. Looking at the tweets, 5 touchdown passes in a row, correct?
Yeah.
What were you, listen, we've seen the progression with him throughout camp. We know he's been decisive and all that. What jumped out to you with those 5 touchdowns? What jumped out to you the most from what you saw from him?
Yeah, I should say that the offense was on the far field. Okay. So I kept looking over intermittently, and you could always see touchdown. So, but they were going more up tempo, a lot of quick passes. But he just looks sharp, quick decision making. Again, better protection up front. But yeah, he looks sharp. He just looks. Kendall hit it on the head. He just looks like a pro out there. Kendall Fuller was asked about Jaden afterwards, and said he didn't know a lot about the guy. He's watched a lot of tape. Heard about the check he made in the preseason opener against the Jets, and just said he just looks like a veteran out there. And I think that's kind of the vibe that a lot of people are getting from him when they see him for the first time, is he just looks like a vet. He's even keeled, he's poised, good decision making. I for myself, and I think probably for others who have watched them cycle through quarterback after quarterback, you try to sort of temper expectations and what he could face in year one, and surely there will be bumps, but so far he's given a lot to like with his performances, and I like the consistency more than anything.
I agree, and it's funny because the Dyami Brown play has become the check heard around the world, because that's become the greatest, and it's like it was a really good play, and I'm not, but it's like it's been talked about so much. It's
reached legendary levels for
yes, like it's going to be on
against the number 2 defense. Yeah,
and it'd be when he gets to Canton someday, if he gets there, it's like great check in his first, but listen, and I kid about that because it was a really good play, and it was the first meaty thing that we had to go on with him in a game setting. But it is true that guys keep talking about the professionalism with him, and I think that's what excites to me, Nicki, this team the most, is the professionalism behind the scenes that they see, and then carrying it out on the field.
Right. No, totally. They practice hard. There's communication. It hasn't been flawless all the time by any means. I mean, we saw New York, but they look like a team that is more well prepared than maybe in years past. That's not a knock on anybody. That's just the reality. I do think they still have a lot of questions throughout the roster. Maybe some more surprising than others. How do you like that segue, John?
There you go. Let's go into what Dan Quinn said about the number 2 receiver. And I know you guys talked to Jahan Dotson afterwards, but it was somebody asked him, like, who's your number 2 up for grabs?
Up for grabs, yeah.
How about that? I mean, is that any surprise to you? I mean, given what we've seen?
Yes and no. I think we should make one thing clear, that was like, we're not talking about Jahan Dotson's roster spot being in jeopardy. That is not the case at all. And I think we've all said all along, like, he's a lock to make the roster. We haven't gone in depth, at least I haven't gone in depth terribly on sort of the hierarchy. I just, always kind of grouped Terry and Jahan together just because we've seen more of both. All the others, Dyami's had one game really. He's played well in camp. The others are mostly newcomers, like Zacchaeus, Luke McCaffrey. Dyami's come on strong, but it's an open race there, is what Quinn told us today. And I still think that's something that could change week to week, even in season. But right now it's an open race, and Jahan, I think, I don't think he's had the strongest game. I don't think he just probably hasn't shown enough of what he can do, and he's basically auditioning for a new regime. And I think Dan Quinn has made it clear to everybody, including the starting quarterback, that he won't just be handing out jobs. You have to earn it. And I think that's the case here, is he really wants to see one of those guys really earn it. And there's some serious competition now. I mean, Zacchaeus has looked really good.
He has. And I will say, like with Jahan, and you touched on this, it's not that he's looked horrible. It's that he hasn't stood out the way maybe you would hope he would, coming off of, after his rookie year. We go into camp last year at this time, we're thinking, hey, could he be this really breakout guy? And then he didn't, for a variety of issues. And, but now it's like, he's not showing any of that. So I think it's not so much that he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything really big and standing out.
Right. Do you hear that thunder behind me? I hope we don't get it. If I die, John Keim, I don't know. Can I get workers' comp from you?
Like I said,
the state of the Jhabvalas.
There may be a tornado down there. So if you see Nicki flying, like, I'm kind of hoping this goes viral if that's the case. So.
Wow. This is what I have to deal with. This is unbelievable.
It's Johnny downloads. Come on.
Johnny.
For the entire month of August, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is offering multiple ways to save on climbing and zip lining, and 50% off axe throwing. There are only a few Sundays left without football, so it's time to get that last summer adventure on the schedule. There's no better place to spend the last few days and nights of the summer with friends and family. Don't just take our word for it. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring was named the #1 aerial adventure park in North America by USA Today. Anytime you're thinking about reaching new heights, make sure you know before you go. The Adventure Park at Sandy Spring is the only ACCT accredited park in Maryland or Virginia. So there you have it, folks. For the rest of the summer, you can get the best climbing, zip lining, and axe throwing in the country, up to 50% off right here in the DMV. Reserve your adventure today at www.theadventurepark.com/Kime.
Back to Jahan. Yes, yeah, it's not like he had a couple drops early on. I think, a number of us noticed that, there were times during reps in camp he wasn't lined up properly. But I don't want to go so far as to say he's unprepared or doesn't work out. No. I don't see that at all. I don't think that's how he's wired at all. Right. I think he's dealt with a lot in his first 3 years in the league. I mean, a lot has been on him. But I do think he said as much, that there's much more he wants to show. So I think given the expectations, he just, and even for a number 2 receiver, which in my mind is more of like a 1B, if you're a number 2, that, that is a prominent role given, how many times they're in 2-3 receiver sets. So,
right. And the other thing with him is 2 things. One, and I've talked about this a little bit, but if he struggles to get off the line, it makes it hard as a receiver in this league. You have to do a lot of things then to get the guy open. At some point, you've got to win at the line. And I think to do that consistently would help him, right? If he can do that consistently, you now raise your game. Can he do that? And, he's not a big guy. You have De'Ami Brown, who's bigger. Mm-hmm. What I've always liked with De'Ami is how he's kind of embraced whatever the role. He's blocked. He's played special teams. He's just got to show he can make plays more than every so often, right? But I also think, Nicki, that this is if you're not sure who that guy is, do you have that guy? And what's the impact if you don't? Can you piece it together with the group you have to make an effective receiving core? That's what I also. What about, do you wonder about that or?
No, totally. And I think that was, part of the reason for bringing in Martavis Bryant. Do you feel like you have the size? And I also think that situation is you lose nothing by seeing what he has at this stage in his career. But yeah, I think it's in totality, where's that group at? And I think for Jahan, and I go back to how Terry approached his early years, because, we all know that he would always find something during the offseason to really focus on and improve. And, it was a few years ago that the releases, that became a big storyline, because he knew how important that would be, how that would take his game to the next level, because he's not the biggest receiver either. A lot of his catches are contested. He's learned to become stronger at the catch point. And I think these are all things that receivers have to learn when they come in the league, each one at different stages, in different circumstances. But that may be some of what Jahan is facing now is, how each year do you take your game to the next level? Because if you just stay stagnant, you're going to get passed up.
Was there, looking at some of the guys that, I don't want you to get hammered by the rain or anything like that. So I'm going to protect you.
I thought you wanted downloads.
Well, I do, but within context, so
okay.
That's only if there's a tornado, not like a thunderstorm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You just want like a really spectacular death and not like
just kind of, but if you have like an umbrella, you could be like, fly, I don't know, maybe you could fly.
Yeah. Little Mary Poppins over here. That would help
exactly.
Got it.
So, but I am curious, like from any other players that kind of jumped out to you today, and you brought up Sam Rustil against Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. I know here the other thing is, people should know when you're watching these things, it's hard to see all the fields. So it's a really difficult thing to see all that you want. So things may be going on over here that you hear about later, but you can't really focus on the why all the time. So were you able to watch more of the defense then, is from where you guys were?
So we were at the top of the bleachers just to be able to see both, because it's like stacked on top of each other, right?
Right.
So the defense was a closer field to us. The line looked really good. They were getting pressure. They were getting home. I think Dorrance Armstrong is really good. I mean, as he should be. I mean, he got the most money of any free agent they signed this offseason. But I don't know that he's talked about enough. He looks really good, and he's, the work he's doing on the edge is obviously helping the interior guys, John Allen, Deron Payne. They looked really good today. Bo Bauer, that was tough to watch. He went down with a leg injury. He was down for a bit. Players immediately got on one knee.
And he's done a nice job this summer.
He had to be carted off. He was able to get up and walk a bit on his own, but he was carted off and later taken in the MRI room. So hopefully we hear an update on him Saturday, I would assume, if not before. Zach Ertz was not here. Baby news. Congrats to the Ertz family. The quarterback's room, bit of change there.
Mariota.
Marcus Mariota dealing with a groin injury. Sam Hartman dealing with a shoulder injury. Neither will play Saturday. Hence the Trace McSorley signing. So he's had all of 24 hours to cram. It helps that he has some familiarity with Kingsbury's offense. But he should get some time. I would imagine that Saturday is the Jeff Driscoll game, gets the bulk of the reps, because you don't want to play, obviously, Jaden Daniels too much.
Hey, it's Bram Weinstein here, voice of the Commanders, and of course, frequent guest of this podcast, The John Keim Report. I wanted to let you all know that my show, which airs at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on ESPN 630, is now exclusively produced by Empire Media, my company, and is going to be distributed through our network. So I'm asking you, please, if you subscribe to this show and love this show, give mine a try as well. Subscribe to The Bram Weinstein Show wherever you get your podcasts. And many of the shows and many of the elements that are in the show will be available on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk a ton of Commanders and other DC sports. Check it out.
Did you see, you talked about KJ Henry too. What kind of work was he? Because I thought he did a nice job.
Yeah, he was working with the ones quite a bit. Cleveland Farrell. He looked pretty good. Again, I'm like trying to look at both, so it's very possible I could have missed something, but he looked like he was playing within the scheme. The line as a group played cohesively. I didn't see any like massive standout play, but it's very possible I missed a play or two. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that he was in it. Cleveland Farrell. He was not out there today. I'm guessing it's a vet day. The team, when asked, declined to really give specifics, but said he was not on the list of injuries.
Well, let me ask you this then, Nicki, because it is hard to. This is where we can't film some of these things, so it's hard to go back and watch the detail of it. Against the Jets, it was helpful that a Jets fan was putting out.
Is this the Jets fan you were referencing?
Oh,
Jets, Jets.
My down.
Again, this is what I have to deal with.
My show, it just crashed.
Dang, we were trying to go in the opposite direction. Yeah. There goes that one download.
But what I was going to say is, last week the Jets, some fan was putting out stuff that we could also then go back and look at more detail for certain plays, because it's really hard. But going back to what you said, and we'll just go 2 more minutes so that way you don't get the rain or whatever. The chemistry, and you asked Deron Payne, I think, this question about how those guys are working up front. Mm-hmm. Because has it been noticeable to you that there's a little bit more cohesion with that front group?
Yes, and that's why I asked it, because it does seem noticeable. And he mentioned, as long as we keep doing this, we play within the scheme. I think they're still kind of learning each other, but it does sound like that group is more closer knit. I don't know. It's hard to say when you're not around these guys in the locker room to really see how they interact off the field too. But it does seem like they have a strong rapport already. And you can see it in preseason too with them running games. They seem to kind of have a feel for what the other guy next to them can do. So I think that's really promising. Because I mean, as well as anybody, it's the last few years with so much talent on the line, just never, the group as a whole living up to expectations. But so far it's been really good with that line. Today was probably one of their better days. I really like Dorrance Armstrong. I think he's going to be big for them on the edge, and they all seem to play well. Yeah. I mean, they all seem to play within the scheme while still, and I think that's sort of the misnomer. and maybe so for even the players that are being coached this way of playing in the scheme. It's sort of like, the system quarterback. It had like negative connotation, but I don't think it should. I think playing within the scheme means you still can create all the issues that you normally would, but you're able to do it more effectively. Like, because when you freelance, it screws up everybody. So I don't think playing within the scheme may have a negative connotation. It doesn't mean you play more conservatively. I think it ends up being the opposite for this group.
I don't think we'll see these little signs posted on the door that says "Do your job" this year.
Yeah,
but I will say I do think, and you're right. We don't know how really cohesive in terms of chemistry how it is, but what we do know is, a few years ago they felt there were cliques, and then they'd have gatherings, and maybe all but one of them would show up, or some of, you know what I mean? So it wasn't, but and that can help. So any other last minute thoughts from this today before you get swept away by the wind?
I don't think so. I think just the one thing that, Terry is always a good gauge for me. Like when things he says to the media, it's fairly honest. I think probably being around him more, you just kind of pick up on, when he's very honest with what he says, and they'll kind of, you just have to listen a little closely because he's not going to bash anybody. He's a pro, but I think his demeanor, you notice, he plays much more confidently. He seems happier out there. I think that says a lot about where this team is at right now.
And
because you could see Terry's frustration in recent years.
Yes, you could.
It's a bit different this year.
Yeah, I for sure. And I think it's funny because the last thing too with Jaden talked about confidence and trying to get it and regain it. And so like, sometimes I'd like to dig deeper with him to say, like, is it, what do you mean by that? Because when you hear that, it's like, well, are you still searching to get it? Or is this just like a thing you say?
I thought that was a very interesting comment. Like, it's so true. You could see it in De'Ami Brown. You can see it in a seasoned vet like Terry. It's true. I mean, it is sort of contagious in that regard. So you hope it continues.
Nicki,
and you hope I don't die.
There you go.
Staying out in the thunder under a metal canopy.
Before the tornado sweeps you away, tell people where they can find you. And I don't mean find you in Miami after you get blown away, but find you on social media.
At Nicki Jhabvala, NICKI JHABBALA I'm still calling it Twitter. I'm gonna always call it Twitter. Don't bother going to my Instagram. Like, I just post photos of my dog and my kids. So
but your kid is actually pretty cute. Your kid is actually
he's super cute. I mean, I'm not biased or anything, but he's super adorable. So if you want to see those, like, go for it.
Yeah, and no, that would be great. And anything you want to plug in the post coming up? No, just read the post. There you go. Yay. There you go. Nicki, thank you very much. Of course, anytime. And by the way, thank everybody for listening. I'll be back on Friday or Saturday morning with a preview of the preseason game, some things to look for. So there you go. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next time.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.